And the reason became abundantly clear by the 50th client that I saw, that the problem was the leadership itself. You would never do that. It
No.
immediately puts my guard up that as soon as the person you're working with acknowledges you did something exceptional, ask and be ready with your ask. Don't make it vague.
Welcome to The Growth Switch, the podcast where we explore the strategies, struggles, and breakthroughs of bold business leaders. I'm your host, Jules Fox, growth strategist and lead content creator at Aries Media. I'm here to uncover how today's top brands are scaling, overcoming challenges, and unlocking sustainable success. Now, for those of you just tuning in, Aries Media helps grow successful brands with comprehensive hands-on support for sales, business development, and performance marketing. Go ahead and drop growth into the comments if you want to learn how to do that. Today, we have a very special guest, Gerry Gadoury. He's a Marine veteran, he's a best-selling author, and he's the founder of Redbeard Solutions, where he helps tech-focused companies break the $5 million ceiling by mastering the art of attracting, recruiting, and retaining top talent through his destination employer methodology. He also runs the podcast called Business Mastery for startups, scale-ups, and early-stage businesses. Gerry, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Now, I would love to hear a little bit more about your background. You've had such a unique journey from military intelligence to tech leadership. How did you go from the Marines to a business leader?
Bad life choices. No, just joking. So I did signals intelligence in the Marines. Unfortunately, I destroyed my knee, and the Marine Corps doesn't need sergeants that can't run. So after 4 knee surgeries, I wound up in the civilian world again. Loving tech, loving the intel world. And I'm going to date myself saying this, I went to a staffing agency. I didn't even know what they were, to interview for a job as a Linux kernel engineer. And the reason I selected that job is it said that they would train the right people. So I go to that interview again. I assumed this was the company. I'd never heard of a staffing firm before. The person I was supposed to meet with had some type of a last minute problem and had to leave. And the branch manager felt badly that I'd driven all that way. So she interviewed me. 15 minutes into the interview, she said, Mr. Gadoury, you really don't have enough background and experience for this, but have you ever considered a career in technical recruiting? And that was that. I took the job not wanting to be a recruiter. I just figured I'd be close to the jobs, and when the right one came along, I would take it. Fast forward, almost 30 years, and we're talking now.
Yeah, that's amazing. So how did you go from being employed at a recruiting company to deciding that you wanted to start up and found your own business?
I've already used bad life choices, so I won't say that. I've always been a bit of a business nerd. I think part of the reason I've had success in the space is I'm equal parts business, technology, and people nerd. All of those three topics fascinate me. So recruiting in the technology space led to sales in the technology space, led to leadership in the technology space. And all of those things together, I realized I had all the tools I needed to go out on my own. So my first kind of, I guess you could call it a transitionary job, was a 100% commission role as a principal consultant in a firm that did sales and recruiter training for technology services companies. And after I joined, we added leadership training to that as well, since that's a kind of centerpiece for me. And I did that for a number of years. Again, 100% commission, which is next best thing to having your own company. And then I started out on my first venture.
Yeah, awesome. So as you created your company, were there certain things that were thrown your way where you decided that you wanted to create more of a framework like the destination employer framework so that you could ease that transition of people into careers?
100% yes. So the majority of my clients in the beginning of my consulting career were smaller businesses. Most of them were technology staffing firms in the beginning, and most of them were about $3 to $8 million in revenue. And owners would come up to that $10 million wall and just bounce back. And the reason became abundantly clear by the 50th client that I saw, that the problem was the leadership itself. In this particular area, and the job skills will be different, but the concept will be the same. They became firm owners because they're incredible recruiters and they figured they'd learn the rest. Or they were incredible salespeople and they figured they'd learn the rest. Or there were technologists that had relationships that they could capitalize on and figured they'd learn the rest. And the reality of technology services is when you're under $5 million, you don't need any real structure. It's kind of like a group of folks just making money and having a good time. But once you get up to that point, it becomes nearly impossible to grow without good structure. Once you get to 20, 25 million, it is impossible. So watching all those people work as hard as they were to fail really inspired me to focus more on how we can find that secret formula to help them get past that.
Yeah. Now, when you were setting out to create your own company, clearly you knew that you had those skills. Like you said, you took that commission only job, which means that you knew that you were a good salesman and you knew that you could do it. But you also say that traditional sales outreach is broken. So, what do you think is working better today, especially for service businesses trying to reach decision makers?
Yeah, I need to give you a little backstory first. So when I first started out in technology service sales, it was pre LinkedIn, pre all of the info sites that used to be all over the place. You literally, the only way you could find things out was to read local business articles to see who was who. There were websites were still not 100% there. Heck, again, this is when email was still the killer app.
Yeah.
So in those days, there was very little pre-call research because there was no real way to do it.
Mhm.
So our managers expected us to make 100 to 125 dials per day, because there was no real research to do.
Right.
So here's the crazy part though. In that 125 dials per day, we would have on average 20 to 25 pickups and a solid 5 to 10 real meaningful conversations every day. So
Mhm.
it didn't really matter if you screwed some up, if you made some mistakes, because you're going to have 5 more that day. And it really accelerated the learning curve. You learned what worked quickly.
Mhm.
Fast forward to now, getting people's contact information, doing background search to understand what might be of interest to them, that's trained monkey easy. Anybody can get phone numbers. Anybody can get emails. There's paid services and there's free ones and there's hacks and there's a million ways. So in the old days, we used to do 125 dials and talk to 25 people a day. Now I work with clients who don't have 25 conversations in a month.
Mm.
So that method of outreach, in my experience, simply doesn't work. So what I have found that works in a world where everyone is getting their inboxes blown up, their texts on their phone and their phones blown up, I found the best ways to create trust and authority and to be in the places talking about the things that are relevant to your target market from a non-sales approach. So using my own example, I wrote a book. I speak at conferences. I write on other people's blogs like Startup Boston. I have my own podcast. I go on podcasts. I'm very, very active on LinkedIn. And you'll notice there's no sales. If you were to go and research, maybe 1 out of every 30 talks about how to buy my service, how to work with me. But because I'm in that space constantly, that type of conversation comes up organically.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's a method that's worked well for me.
Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of companies miss. There always has to be a call to action on their post. It's always about the sale, which means that that information is always about them, which means that it's
Yes.
not really information anyway. They're just constantly selling and they're not focusing on what value they're delivering to the right audience and getting in front of the right clients. They're focusing on how do I bring these people to my sales thing, which is a lot less effective.
Additionally, they're not treating the people that they want to engage with like they're people at all. I mean, take the sales context away and imagine you walked up to somebody at a reception or a bar or whatever. You would the way you interact with them should be similar to the way you handle your sales outreach. For example, at least once or twice a day, will have somebody connect with me on LinkedIn. Then a minute later, either pitch slap me with what their service is all about,
Yeah.
or even worse, in a creepy kind of way, they'll ask me some random question. And it's not that it's ever particularly offensive. Like I had one today that said, I sold my first company and got involved in investments that matter to me. What are you into? Well,
Mhm.
person I've never met, I don't feel any obligation to answer that question.
Yeah. Yeah. I get those things all the time. Exactly. And like there's no way going into it that anybody would legitimately ask you that question unless they had an agenda, right?
Exactly. Take the exact same scenario. You're sitting down in a hotel bar. I walk up to you and I introduce myself and I say, hi, person I've never met. My name is Gerry. I recently sold. You would never do that. It
No.
immediately puts my guard up that this person's looking for something.
Yeah, exactly. So I think a lot of people don't have that system dialed in. Maybe they don't know what they're doing to get sales. You also mentioned that referrals are passive and unreliable unless you can systematize them. And I think that follows that pattern, that systematization. All right. So why don't you share how you've built some of these proactive referral engines that actually works for people?
Great example. So referrals are always great. I love referrals. And what I love about referrals is you're borrowing the authority and the relationship of the person who gave it to you. Now, first things first, it's got to be real. Okay? And for it to be real, you need to have done something to have earned it. Okay. So if one of my recruiters is working with you, I have recruiters, I have leadership consultants, I have digital marketers. If one of my recruiters is working with you on a role and he or she crushes it, they find the role you're looking for, the interview process is a dream, everything goes to plan, and you say something like, wow, my experiences with recruiters have been pretty bad, but work with you has been great. That's your time to ask the referral. The
Yeah.
person has acknowledged you've done something above and beyond. And when you ask for that referral, you want to do it in a smart way. Hey, Alex, it was great working with you as well. You did this, you did that, you did the other thing, and that made working with you that much easier. Let me ask you a question. I work with folks in your particular skill set all the time, and I don't need to tell you that you're hard to find. Given your experience with me, would you consider referring me to one of your colleagues? It's
Yeah.
just that easy. So
Yeah.
by systematize it, as soon as the person you're working with acknowledges you did something exceptional, ask and be ready with your ask. Don't make it vague. Hey, Alex, can you refer somebody to me? Too vague. If they're going to think
Right.
about it, they're not going to do it. I was very specific in my ask. If you
Yeah.
say yes, which most will, then take that next step. Hey, it'd be great if you could do an email introduction with the both of us. And then once they reply, I'll do a reply all and we'll drop you off so you're not getting blown up. Or if you'd like to see what happens, I'll let you know. However that works out, keep that person who gave you that referral in the loop.
Mhm.
Okay. And by keeping them in the loop, you're number one, you're showing gratitude. You're keeping them relaxed because when they give you a referral, a piece of their integrity goes with that. And they don't want you to damage it. So by letting them know how it goes, you're making them at ease. It opens the door for future referrals. In addition, the person you got from a referral is preconditioned to give referrals because that's how you met them.
Yeah.
So that's a referral. I can give you a million examples from a sales perspective as well, but that's an example of how to create a referral engine.
Right. And it's almost the opposite of, if a person doesn't know you yet, right? And this goes back to our example on LinkedIn when somebody pitch slaps you as you said so eloquently, right? You know, when a person doesn't know you yet and they ask for something, it's a favor. When they haven't worked with you yet and you ask them to give you a referral and you haven't proven yourself, you're asking them for a favor. But you can completely flip that around. If you've given them a good experience, then you can actually do them a favor by having them refer some of their friends who need better services. And they know that they know that you are good at what you do and that you can provide that service well. So now you're actually providing them something of benefit, right? Which is more of a favor to them than it is them doing a favor to you, which completely flips the equation.
100%. And again, the reputation factor. If you refer me to your friend or colleague and they have a miserable experience with me, obviously they'll never work with me again, but it damages your reputation as well.
Yes.
So you need to do something to earn that so the person has a level of comfort. And then you need to manage that through to its natural conclusion so that that person who gave you the referral maintains that comfort. You want them to feel good about the experience all the way through. In a very related note, one of the mistakes that salespeople and consultants make consistently is they don't set and manage expectations. If I start working with you as a recruiter, I can't promise you a job. I'm not the hiring manager. All I
Yeah.
can promise is I'm going to do the things that I do to the best of my ability. If I'm working with you as a leadership coach, I can't guarantee your next promotion. Heck, you might be actively bad at your job. I
Yeah.
can't control that. But what I can do is my best to show you the things that I know work. It's the
Yeah.
same thing. So if you set manage expectations, you get into far fewer problems with people being upset.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So it sounds like you actually have a lot of this stuff dialed in, which is fantastic. What are some of your personal goals for your own company over the next 12 months?
It's hard to say. There's a couple of variables that are at play that I'm not really ready to talk about. So one of the things that I do is I take interim CEO roles for companies. And I took a role for a firm, a size firm, about $60 million dollars in revenue, that is going really well. And it's taking a lot of time from Redbeard. So there's a lot dependent on that. But my primary goal, frankly, is just to continue helping startups and small businesses to achieve the things we achieve. So we didn't talk about it, but one of the things I did on my path, I was the president of a company called Apicero, which is a MuleSoft implementation company. And we went from startup to exit in a $250 million acquisition in less than 5 years. And a lot of what I teach comes from what we learned doing that. And I want to see if I can get, at least 5 other companies through something similar.
Yeah. Yeah, to prove it. I don't know if you're an Alex Hormozy fan, but he did that with his own company and realized he could repeat it a few times and then started doing it for other people. So it's that, like, let me show you that I can do it, and now let me help you do it,
Yeah, there's so much win in that. So Alex Hormozy, he takes an equity stake in a lot of these companies, so it's win-win. I obviously work for fees, and if I'm heavily involved in a long-term executive role, then there's an equity stake as well. So it's really win-win. But the main thing is, again, just getting other people through that. Small business and startups, that's the economic engine of the planet, and it's the innovation engine of the planet. It's the most important part of the economy. So helping these companies to figure out, how to step over the easy to see landmines, it's why I do what I do.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as Redbeard is going, do you have plans to grow that company? Because it sounds like you have a lot of clout. It sounds like you have a lot of engagement. You clearly know what you're doing. So what are the growth plans for Redbeard in the near future?
Yeah, so we work in 2 areas. Our primary focus overall is technology services companies. So custom software development companies, consulting companies, implementation companies, system integrators, things like that. We work in both the federal and the private sectors. And I need to finally decide what I like more. I like components of each. So I come from a military and signals intelligence background, so we do a lot in that area. But I also like just the white hot, just growing like somebody threw napalm on it, that technology service startups do in the private sector. So I either need to accept and split my company into 2 divisions, or pick a lane and let the other one go. So in my growth, I'm going to make that decision. And once I make that, we'll keep moving. But the goal really is just to continue to grow. Our team is on fire. We're doing great. Our clients are doing great. Just to continue to grow.
Yeah.
And I know it's a soft answer, but I really haven't decided. And frankly, this is going to sound crazy, but it might be a good topic to talk about. My goal isn't to exit, at least not anytime soon. I'm just building a company I enjoy running. And I think too many people overlook that. I've been through the exit path. I've gotten the big check. So, and that's great. But what I see too many people do is they exit too quickly. They get a really nice payday, but not a retirement payday. And now they're either going to go take a job, stay with the company that bought them, or start again. And if ever Redbeard were to be sold, it would need to be for I'm not going to work again money.
Yeah, absolutely. And also it's just with the market the way it is kind of nice to have both of those options open, because you kind of never know where that bread and butter money is going to come from,
100%. I mean, the U.S. government is the biggest buyer in the world, bar none.
Yeah.
But it's also the most cantankerous, slow-moving, and picky buyer in the world.
Yeah.
There's a lot of vagaries in the space. This year being an incredible, example of it. I don't want to get into politics, but things like Doge completely changed the landscape of government contracting for the last
whole agency shut down. Whatever side of the aisle you're on, you can look and say it's a radically different landscape now than it was at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, and at risk of being political, I will say I agreed with the mission, but the implementation could have been better.
Yeah. All right. So how do people connect with you, and how do they connect with Redbeard? What's the best way that they can connect?
I spend an embarrassing amount of time on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
If you Google my name, there's schedule calls all over the place. There's magazine articles. If you can't find me, you're not looking.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And for all of our viewers, for all of our listeners, right down below in the show notes, you're going to find the link to where you can connect. You're going to find company links. You're going to find the podcast link, and I'll even put that book link, because
awesome.
as a fellow author, I know how important that is to get more eyeballs on your book.
Well, I appreciate it. I'll tell you, we hit number 1 3 times last year.
That's
So
amazing. Yeah,
I
that's
wouldn't mind
great.
doing it a 4th time.
Yeah. Gerry, it's so nice to have you on the podcast. I really appreciate your time and expertise. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. I deeply appreciate it.